Okay, so this is a project that I spent a couple days on back in August of 2020. It was just a random website that I came across, and a lot of things really bothered me on it. I mean, there are things on this website that I don't think were really acceptable back in 2012, let alone in 2020. Things like really small text and some other things. This contrast issue here. But also, it's not responsive. So if you were to load up this website on your phone, like we show here on the right, it's really not good. Okay, and then here on the contact page, we've got a horizontal scroll bar, which is never acceptable. Even before 2012, when I was working on websites, horizontal scroll bars are just not good. You don't do that. Stop it. Except in some extremely rare edge cases where it's an intentional design feature. Just never do horizontal scrolling. And also, since this website was designed so long ago, when we inspect this the top navigation bar here, where are we at? Here we go. We've got an image to create the gradients and other things, and that's just, you just don't do that anymore. The next thing is they are using jQuery for this website, and the only thing that I could find that jQuery is actually being used for is this image slider here. Speaking of the image slider, it does have these forward and back buttons, and I really don't like the placement of them. Go ahead and inspect those. They are at least anchor tags, but the JavaScript void. So I don't like that. I'll leave it at that. So the next thing that I looked at was the Lighthouse score, which Lighthouse is something that's built into Google's Chrome browser. You can check things like performance, accessibility, best practices, SEO. And probably get the same results if we run that now. Well, I guess the Lighthouse score has changed quite a bit. Performance went way up. But of course, accessibility and SEO are still meh. Best practices actually went down. I'd love to know why the performance went up, but because I don't have access to this website other than in my browser, I can't know that. Best practices went down, so I wonder if that's due to updates with the Lighthouse algorithm, or if they actually changed something on the website to make it worse. Note to self, I guess, make better documentation on the Lighthouse scores when I'm looking into this kind of stuff. So another thing that I noticed was that they had a main background GIF image that was 404. Also, there's no meta description for the web pages, and no open graph tags, of course. Now, as I said before, the things that jumped out at me was like, the poor contrast on this link and lots of small text on anything smaller than 16 pixels is small text to me. And like I said, these things weren't really acceptable to me back in 2012, let alone 2020. And since I don't have access to the back end of the website, this isn't a client of mine or anything, I can't give you an accurate date as to when this design was implemented or updated or anything like that. However, we did get a little bit lucky in that the Internet Archive Wayback Machine has lots of snapshots of this website available. So we can go back in time. So if we go back to 2002, the design was completely different. It's also largely broken in this snapshot, but that's most likely a quirk of the Wayback Machine and not necessarily how the website looked at the time. Then we go to 2007. This is what it looked like. Again, images are broken most likely because the Wayback Machine just doesn't get everything sometimes. Then if we go to 2010, this is the oldest version of the website that I would categorize as, okay, this is when they updated it. As far as this design layout, not necessarily all the colors and everything, but you get what I mean. So this website probably has not been changed in a big way since 2010. And of course, when you load it up on the phone here, everything's very tiny. You could rotate your phone to use this website a little bit better, but still not great. And phone screens have really made the tiny text problem even worse, in my opinion. But even before designing for small screens on phones or tablets was really kind of a mainstream idea. Even before that, I was like, no, don't make your text so tiny. 16 pixels is what browsers default to if you don't use any CSS to change the font size. So 16 pixels is what I go to for default text. Text that you want people to actually be able to read. There aren't very many cases where I ever want to go smaller than 16 pixels for the font size. The only edge cases where I kind of think it's acceptable is maybe in the footer. Let's see what they have in their footer here. Like down here, home, sales, service, contact, copyright. If someone wants to have tiny text in their footer, I wouldn't push back against that. And I do consider the small text because not everybody has eyes that are as good as yours. Or not everybody has a monitor that's as good as yours. You don't know. If you go with the default text size of the browser, you'll probably be fine. Because someone that has, let's say, not as good an eyesight as you do, they may have already changed the default text size in their browser to compensate for that. And if you go and make the text smaller, it'll probably upset them a little bit. That's not a change that I've ever made in my browsers, but I know it's possible, and it's been possible since probably Internet Explorer 5 or even older. That setting has been in browsers forever. Okay, so other accessibility issues I found on the website were the page headings were put in as H2 tags, but there were no H1s. A lot of the images were missing alt text tags, and there were also multiple images with the same alt text. HTML document language was missing. I found 11 pixel font sizes, which, like I said, 14 pixel font size is annoying to me. So 11 pixels, what are you thinking? Do you want anybody to read this? So right there on the main page, in their little subheading, I would call this 11 pixels. It's crazy, crazy. And also the very low contrast text background colors, which is primarily this menu up here. I mean, it's nice that the links change to let you know which page or tab you are on, but it's just so low contrast. This is just bad. And some other little notes that I made as I was going through their CSS file was that I found 18 floats, and also notes on like the byte size of everything in CSS. And let's see if I can get to that network page. I don't remember how I got to that network page, so let's go ahead and copy this and paste it. Not found. Interesting. So that network page had a bunch of YouTube videos on it, and none of them were playable because they were using the old flash embeds from YouTube. So I guess they decided that none of the videos on that page were important enough to actually keep on their website. So I think that's enough of looking at the original website. So here's the website that exists the way that I reworked it. And I did not use Bootstrap for this. I wanted to get more experience playing around with Flexbox mainly. And so that's what I did. So I'm using Flexbox for the layout of this website, with probably zero thought given to any web browsers that don't support Flexbox. Because I was just doing this for fun and I wanted to see what exactly I could do and make work. So the first thing on the page as far as meaningful text goes is an H1 tag, which they didn't do in their original website. They used all H2 tags for their page titles. And their teeny tiny text, did I make this the H2? I did not. I just made that a paragraph. I should have made a video going over this back when I actually did this instead of putting it off for so long. So the next thing would be this image slider thing. We've still got the image slider, obviously. Still using their laptop image. But I didn't use jQuery for this. And it looks like I'll have to walk back what I said earlier about absolutely zero thought given to browsers that don't support Flexbox. Because I do have this Internet Explorer CSS file that has some things in it to deal with some Flexbox stuff that does not work in Internet Explorer 11. I definitely did not test browsers older than that though, because I don't currently have any browsers older than IE 11 installed to test. Let's go to the responsiveness. Oof, that is not great. I thought I had gotten this pretty much perfect, but I guess not. Not an iPhone 5. Maybe, perhaps, I decided that the iPhone 5 was too old for me to care about. Oh, yeah. I still need to do some work on the mobile stuff. That kind of sucks. Do I have any that look okay? No. Good lord. You know what? I think I understand now why I didn't do a video for this website before. Because there was still work to be done. And real work got in the way of continuing to mess with this website. But anyhow, this is what I have to show right now. And I want to make a video on it because I probably won't be getting back to this website for any reason again. So as far as the menu goes here, all the text is readable, and instead of the text color changing to show what page you're on, there's a little green underline that shows what page you're on. And if we look at it over here on the mobile view, the menu does work as expected, but we're getting the space on the right because of this image slider that hasn't been properly dealt with. The slider is actually draggable on the phone, so that's good. Which, if you can drag them to change, you don't really need the forward and back buttons. So I would get rid of those, and probably just, you know, if getting rid of the forward and back didn't fix the layout issue here, probably just make it smaller. Or just remove it altogether on a phone, because honestly, it doesn't add much as far as I'm concerned, as far as content goes. But this is mainly about the menu, and when you go to a page that doesn't have that image slider on it, it looks a lot better. Yeah, that footer's kind of a mess too. That could be better dealt with. As I go through these tabs, you'll see it's very consistent, with the exception of the main page because there's 2 lines of text for the H1. But you've got your H1 text, then your lead paragraph, and that is the same on every page as far as the layout goes and the font sizes. And that's the kind of thing that I really like to see, where there's a really consistent upper area of the website. Kind of makes me sad that some of these pages probably don't exist on their actual website anymore, like the sales page. But you know what? I can probably find it on the Wayback Machine. There's a sales link in the footer. Alright. They did have familiar brands at the bottom of the main page, though. But I don't think, yeah, that was not where I got these logos from, or the idea from. So this is their old sales page. So back what I was saying for the consistency of every page not having a huge layout change at the very top, where we got the H1 and then our lead text. When we go to different pages here, it's consistent, but this remote support being on 2 lines, that bothers me. It doesn't need to be. And of course, the 11 pixel font size for your lead text is just terrible. Please don't do that. And of course, if we go to the Contact Us page, this is the page where we can still see a horizontal scroll bar. It was happening on more than one page when I originally looked at this site, though. And here's the contact page reimagined. Still has the Google Maps functionality on it, but there's no horizontal scroll bar. This submit button is orange. That's something that I took liberties with, I think. Yeah. Because they have their links as orange, so I decided to make the submit button orange. Because that just kind of makes sense to me. I mean, it's not something I'm completely married to. That would, you know, if a designer or the client didn't like it, I would absolutely change it for whatever they wanted, pretty much. Let's see how the contact page looks on the phone. Looks pretty good. Oh, yeah, that's not good there. So we've still got issues to work out on the phone. And now that I'm looking at this again on the phone, the show menu text. I mean, this is one of those things. There are arguments to be made that the hamburger style menus aren't exactly accessible or friendly, because you just get 3 dots or 3 lines and no text that actually tells the user what those are for. So with that in mind, I just had it say show menu and hide menu. So that's the only reason that's the way that is. I don't know if there's probably not a better solution that really strikes me as, okay, yes, this is absolutely better. And we could call it show main menu, but then that's more text, and people don't like to read. I wish I could come up with something that's a little bit more elegant, I guess. So back to my list of issues. Number 3, image files used for backgrounds. There are no image files used for backgrounds on anything here. I don't even have any gradients that I used anywhere. Wait a minute. There is a gradient on these news cards, or media objects, whichever you would prefer to call them. Let's see if I can find an example of their old news page. Okay, so they were basically already using kind of the media object pattern or idea back in 2011. So that's interesting. 2010, sorry. And this is the page where they had all their YouTube embeds that weren't working because they're Flash embeds. So I did fix those. Awesome. But is this page on their current website? It is not. So it's likely that they removed that page because they decided that, you know, maybe these YouTube videos and these news links that go to other websites weren't that important to have on their website. I don't know. So next thing on my list was the jQuery being used for the image slider thing. I was able to find a little bit of JavaScript that worked very well and didn't involve bringing in 56 kilobytes of code. Okay, so the next thing on my list is the very poor Lighthouse score. So let's go ahead and check that out. Hopefully it's better. Well, it's better than it used to be. But it's still not where I would like things to be. SEO, I definitely would want to be green. Best practices, I could probably get that score up. Accessibility too. I would kind of like to dig back into this just to fix this Lighthouse score, but I don't think that's going to happen right now. So next on my list is the meta description and then open graph tags. If we just go to view source here, you can see I've got all that stuff added in. It's not 100% complete, but again, that's because I was just doing this for fun. mainly to play with Flexbox, not to get everything completely perfect. So for example, these meta tags, they've just got placeholder text, and things like image URLs are just not even here because I didn't put the work in to get that done. So something else that I put quite a bit of effort into was a banner ad that I found on a snapshot of their website from 2019. It was this used Chromebooks for just $150. This is an image. And while that's okay, it's definitely not ideal. Number one, you're not going to get any search engine hits from an image ad like this, because you just won't. There's no text associated with it. If we open up our inspector here, you can see that there is no alt text of any kind. So I did rework this, and this is all text. So yeah, the circle is still an image because that ended up being the easiest thing to do. And if we look over on the phone here, you can see how everything kind of refactors or reformats. The layout gets reworked. So it's still workable and readable. It still serves its purpose on the phone, as opposed to if you're using this image here that is 1100 pixels wide, this is never going to look good on a phone. So yeah, this is all just Flexbox CSS and all the elements that make up the advertisement. And that's one of the things that I remember doing that I thought was a nice touch, was when the viewport is wide enough, have this banner advertisement idea kind of pop beyond the edges of the content area. And just something I thought was neat. It's one of those things where it's like, I can do this, so why not? And here, just so you can see how it works when we're resizing the browser window, I'll go ahead and just resize this throughout all the permutations that I remember making. And we'll do the same thing with the menu up here, because I did a couple of different things at different breakpoints for the menu. You can see the logo image up here starts to get smaller before we do anything with the links. And looking at this now, I think that when this menu style comes in, to where we got the logo on top and the links below the logo, I think I would probably want to center the H1 tags, this text here. But all the other heading tags on the page I would probably still keep left aligned. Let's look at this menu, because this menu at the bottom really bothers me on the phone. Yeah, it's just not looking great the way that it's set up right now. It looks misaligned. There are alignment rules going on here, but it's just not very good, because you got 4 here and 3 here, and it's just, they're not visually the same width, so as far as the text goes, so it looks messy. That is something I would probably want to put more work into. I mean, that really is about all there is to go over on this website. One of the things is this contact us and get support. That stuff also collapses at a smaller viewport, so that stuff gets pushed to the bottom when the viewport is not wide enough to really nicely support a 2-column layout like that. But yeah, like I said, that's about all there is that I think I really should show in this video, because there isn't much else to what I did here. Like I said, I spent, I think, 2 days on this back in August. Yeah, I never came back to it for some reason. I don't remember exactly why. I probably just got distracted and busy with other things, so it just kind of lost track of it. It is what it is. It's still a work in progress, because You know, nobody was paying me to work on this. So, you know, the projects where people are paying me to do work on it tend to get priority over things like this. Which is kind of sad, because most of the things that I'm getting paid for, they don't want custom CSS. They're happy if you just use Bootstrap. Which I don't have a huge problem with. Bootstrap's not that bad. It's pretty cool, actually.